I woke up that morning with no warning that my world was about to tilt. The sun was pouring through the blinds, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, and I was scrolling through my phone half distracted. You know that sleepy routine? Checking group chats, skimming through notifications, clearing junk emails. It felt like any other day. And then my phone buzzed again. Just one vibration, one text. I opened it without thinking. "You're not invited anymore." That was it. 4 words, no greeting, no explanation, just a wall slamming down in my face. Can you imagine being cut out of your own brother's wedding like that? I froze. My thumb hovered above the screen like I was supposed to respond, but what do you even say to something like that? My chest felt heavy, like someone had pressed a stone against my ribs. I kept rereading it, half convinced I had misread, but no, the words didn't change. "You're not invited anymore." It wasn't from a stranger. It wasn't from some coworker. It was from Alex, my brother, my little brother, the kid I practically raised, the boy who cried in my arms when Dad missed his school play, the one I stayed up with on school nights, quizzing him for exams, even when I had a job interview the next morning. And now, with one cold text, he had erased me. I sat on the edge of my bed, heart pounding so loud I swore the neighbors could hear it. Images started flashing in my head, one after the other like a cruel slideshow. Alex's 6th birthday when I bought him a cake even though my paycheck had barely covered rent. The winter night I gave him my jacket while I shivered all the way home because he had forgotten his. The summer I skipped my college road trip because he wanted to join a soccer camp and someone had to cover the fees. Every sacrifice, every small act of love, I remembered them all. And in that moment, it felt like none of it mattered. I whispered to myself, "How did we get here?" You need to understand something. This wasn't just about a party. This wasn't just about not getting an invitation. This was about blood, about loyalty, about a bond that was supposed to be unbreakable. And here I was, holding my phone like a grenade had just gone off. My first reaction? Shock. My second? Anger. And buried underneath was this hollow ache I can't even describe. It's like grief, but the person isn't dead. They just decided you don't count anymore. The irony? I had already bought my outfit. I had already arranged time off work. I had pictured standing there, smiling, watching him step into this new chapter. I wanted to be proud. Instead, I was deleted. I thought about calling him, about demanding an explanation, but my fingers wouldn't move. Because deep down, I already knew why. See, I had raised questions before, about Megan, about the way she treated money like it was infinite, the way she manipulated conversations so Alex always ended up apologizing. I had said out loud what everyone else only whispered, that something about her didn't sit right, and apparently that was my crime. So this text, it wasn't just a message, it was a punishment. I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling. Memories kept flooding in. The day Alex crashed Dad's car and I covered for him. The night he confessed he was failing a class, and I stayed up rewriting his essays so he could pass. The countless times I played both sister and parent while Mom was working late. All of that devotion, and in 1 second, it was gone. And here's the cruelest thought that crossed my mind. Maybe he never saw me as family at all. Maybe I was just convenient. The safety net he could cut loose once he didn't need me. Tell me, if it happened to you, if someone you poured your soul into suddenly decided you weren't worthy of standing by their side, what would you feel? Would you scream? Would you beg? Or would you sit there in silence, like I did, letting the hurt eat you alive? The phone was still in my hand. I scrolled up, checking if maybe this was a prank. If maybe another message followed. Nothing. Just that one line, glowing back at me. Cold, final. I wanted to run to Mom, to Dad, to someone. But a voice in my head whispered, they probably already knew. And that made the ache sharper. Because if they knew and stayed silent, what did that mean? I got up, pacing my room. My bare feet slapped against the wooden floor. The air felt thick, heavy. My coffee had gone cold, untouched on the counter. Outside, kids were laughing, riding their bikes, like the world hadn't just crumbled inside my chest. I typed out a reply, "Why?" and deleted it. I tried again, "Are you serious?" and deleted that too. Every draft felt like begging, and I refused to beg, but still I wanted answers. I wanted to shake him and make him remember. Remember who stayed up with him when he was sick, who loaned him money when he couldn't pay rent, who showed up at every game, every recital, every milestone. Instead, I was disposable. I sat back down, head in my hands. I kept hearing my own voice from years ago. No matter what, I'll always be there for you. The kind of promise you make when you're young, when you think love is enough to guarantee loyalty. But promises don't mean much when the other person chooses to forget them. And that realization that my brother had chosen Megan's comfort over my presence hurt more than anything else. I won't lie. Tears burned my eyes. I bit down on my lips so hard I tasted blood. Because I wasn't just mourning an invitation. I was mourning the relationship I thought we had. The more I sat there, the more a question kept circling my mind. If family can discard you this easily, what does family even mean? And maybe that's the real wound. Not the text itself, but the fact that it made me question everything I had believed about loyalty, about love, about blood ties. I wish I could tell you I moved on quickly, that I shook it off, laughed, and lived my life. But that would be a lie. For days, I replayed it. For nights, I scrolled through old photos of us, birthday candles, graduation caps, silly selfies, and every smile in those pictures mocked me. Because if all of that history could vanish with one line of text, then what was it ever worth? So I'll ask you again. Can you imagine being cut out of your own brother's wedding with nothing but a cold message? If you've ever been excluded by the people you sacrificed everything for, I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments, because I know I'm not the only one. And maybe, just maybe, sharing these stories will remind us that even when family fails you, you're not truly alone. I sat in my apartment for hours after that text. My phone lay face down on the coffee table, but the words still burned in my brain. You're not invited anymore. I kept pacing the room, picking things up, setting them down, trying to outrun the ache in my chest. My suitcase leaned in the corner, half packed for the wedding, dresses folded, shoes waiting. It felt like a cruel joke. At first, I thought maybe I should call him, demand an explanation, fight for my spot in that room. But every time my thumb hovered over the call button, I remembered the coldness of that message. No warmth, no regret, just rejection. And I asked myself, why would I beg to attend a day where my presence was clearly unwanted? That's when an idea hit me, sharp and wild. I stared at my suitcase, then at the flight confirmation email sitting in my inbox, Dallas to Chicago, straight into humiliation. What if I didn't go? What if, instead of walking into a wedding that had already cut me out, I chose me? My laptop blinked awake as I pulled it onto my lap. Fingers shaking, I clicked into the airline portal. I typed in my booking number. My heart hammered like I was breaking some rule of the universe. The screen asked, "Do you want to change your flight?" And before I could overthink it, I typed, "Yes, Las Vegas." That was the first destination that popped into my head. Not because I wanted to gamble or party, but because it was the farthest thing from begging. Vegas felt like escape, like freedom, a place where no one would expect me to be the quiet, reliable sister. I entered my card details, hit confirm, and felt the ground shift beneath me. It wasn't relief, not yet. It was more like a rush, like standing at the edge of a cliff and finally deciding to jump. Can you picture that? You've spent your whole life choosing others, and then suddenly, for the first time, you choose yourself? It's terrifying, and it's addictive. When the confirmation email arrived, I stared at it, blinking back a mix of fear and excitement. My suitcase wasn't a burden anymore. It was a ticket out of the role I'd been trapped in, out of the guilt that had chained me to family politics. The next morning, I stepped into the airport, dragging my suitcase behind me. My chest still hurt, but there was something different in the air. The terminal buzzed with noise, announcements echoing, rolling suitcases rattling, the smell of overpriced coffee drifting from every corner. And for once, I wasn't boarding a plane for obligation. I was boarding for me. I remember sitting by the gate, watching families and couples gather. Part of me still ached, thinking of Alex, wondering if he even missed me, if he even paused before hitting send. But then I caught my reflection in the window. My eyes looked alive, even if rimmed with tears. My lips curved into something that almost looked like a smile. The flight itself felt surreal. The moment the wheels left the runway, I exhaled. It was like my body had been holding its breath for years. I stared out the window as the city shrank beneath me, the streets and houses becoming toy-sized, insignificant. My phone was on airplane mode, blissfully silent. No texts, no guilt, no drama. And in that silence, I whispered to myself, I didn't know it then, but this choice would change everything. Because while my family gathered in Chicago, I was somewhere else entirely, about to stumble into a twist I couldn't have imagined. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step away. To walk toward the unknown instead of clawing for a seat at a table that doesn't want you. If you've ever chosen yourself for the first time, if you've ever walked away from something that hurt, even when it terrified you, tell me in the comments. I want to know what freedom looked like for you. I didn't know it yet. That's the part that still stings when I replay the timeline. While I was in Las Vegas trying to remember how to breathe without guilt, my family's group chat was detonating in real time. Like fireworks in a closed room. I didn't see any of it then. My phone was on airplane mode, face down in my tote. But later, I would scroll through the timestamps and feel the heat of every message, like standing too close to a stove. Vegas felt loud and bright the way freedom always looks in movies. Slot machines chimed, ice clinked in glasses, hotel carpet swallowed footsteps. I walked through the lobby with my suitcase rolling behind me, surprised at the sound it made. This soft little rhythm that said, "You're moving forward." I checked in, rode the elevator alone, watched my floor number light up like small promises. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, someone typed the first spark that would become a fire, Mom 812 AM, : Has anyone seen Megan? She's not answering. I was in my room, staring at the city through a thick pane of hotel glass, thinking how small everything looks when you're above it. I pressed my forehead to the cool window. For the first time in a long time, my body didn't feel like an alarm. Dad, 8:27 a.m. Alex, call me now. I unpacked slowly. One dress on a hanger, a pair of heels I packed out of habit, not need. I put my phone on the nightstand, dark and quiet. The silence felt like a blessing. Bridesmaid, Jenna 8:35 a.m. : We're at hair/makeup. Where's the bride? I took a shower hot enough to erase a week of knots. I counted to 10 under the water and then kept counting because the heat felt like permission. When I turned the faucet off, I heard only my breath. It didn't hitch. It didn't rush. It just moved in and out like it belonged to me again. Mom 8:42 a.m. Megan's room is empty. Jenna 8:43 a.m. : Empty? Like gone? Best man, Ty 8:43 a.m. Alex says Megan texted at 6 a.m. to clear her head. He thought she was nervous. Should we stall vendors? I slipped into a cotton dress and sandals, tied my hair up, and walked to the cafe downstairs. The espresso machine hissed, cups clattered. Someone laughed too loudly at a joke I didn't hear. I ordered a latte I didn't need and held it with both hands like a warm anchor. Dad, 8:51 a.m. Call me now, it's urgent. Mom, 8:52 a.m. Sophia would know what to do. Ty, 8:53 a.m. : Do not drag Sophia into this. Today is about Alex. That line would slice me open later. Today is about Alex, wasn't it always? I sat by the window, the cup heating my palms, and watched the strip wake up. Billboards flickered, joggers passed. Everything in motion. I took my first real sip and tasted something like peace. Jenna, 9 a.m. Guys, the dress is gone. Mom, 9:01 a.m. What? Jenna, 9:02 a.m. The garment bag is empty, only the hanger. Dad, 9:04 a.m. Alex is on his way to the bank. Megan's card is declining. Something's wrong. The stakes were rising in a group chat I wasn't reading. In Vegas, a band started sound check somewhere far below, bass thudding through the walls like a distant heartbeat. I closed my eyes and let it vibrate in my ribs. Alex, 9:11 a.m. They're saying the account is zero, our joint account. Mom, 9:12 a.m. : 0. There was $30,000. Dad, 9:13 a.m. Where is Megan? Where is she? I walked outside into the dry heat, the kind that wraps around you without warning. The sky was a flat blue sheet without a single tear in it. A cab pulled up and someone climbed in wearing a sequined dress at 9 in the morning, and I thought, maybe I can learn how to be this bold. Ty, 9:18 a.m. Alex needs space. Let's stop messaging. Jenna, 9:19 a.m. Space? The florist is asking for the balance. Mom, 9:21 a.m. Call the vendors. Tell them we're delayed 30 minutes. I wandered through a neon-lit maze of hallways, taking turns just to see where they led. An escalator lifted me into another floor that looked exactly like the last. Mirrors, lights, 1,000 reflections. For a second, I couldn't tell which version of me was real. The one moving forward or the one always circling back. Alex, 9:28 a.m. I found a note. Mom, 9:29 a.m. What does it say? Alex, 9:30 a.m. : It says she's sorry. It says she can't do this. It says not to call. Back in Vegas, I paused by a fountain that threw water into the air, like joy that had learned choreography. Couples stopped for pictures. A kid leaned too far over the edge and his dad yanked him back, both of them laughing. I smiled without meaning to then. Jenna, 9:34 a.m. : Vendor chat is blowing up. DJ wants final payment. Venue wants confirmation. Do we cancel? Mom, 9:35 a.m. No, she'll come back. Bride's panic. Dad, 9:36 a.m. Alex, where are you? Alex, 9:38 a.m. : On hold with the bank. The timeline shows it like a drum roll, each message landing harder than the last. A beat, another beat. Then the strike. Alex, 9:42 a.m. The cashier says multiple withdrawals this morning. Branches on the west side. Dad, 9:43 a.m. She emptied you out before sunrise. Mom, 9:44 a.m. No, 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 no. In Vegas, the morning kept unfolding. I bought a small notebook from a gift shop because it was soft blue and reminded me of ocean water. I wrote one sentence on the first page. I don't have to be who I've been. Jenna, 9:49 a.m. We can't keep guests in limbo. Some are already arriving at the hotel. Cousin, Maria, 9:50 a.m. I'm here with the kids. Are we still on? Mom, 9:51 a.m. : Please give us an hour. I sat on a sun-warmed bench outside and let the heat soak my legs. For the first time, I thought about lunch, about ordering something I actually wanted instead of what was cheapest. It felt like a small rebellion. Dad, 9:57 a.m. Security footage shows Megan leaving before 6 a.m. with luggage. Jenna, 9:58 a.m. Luggage? Alex, 9:59 a.m. She's not answering. The next messages came fast, like someone had leaned on the send button. Mom, 10:01 a.m. She took the cash gifts. Dad, 10:02 a.m. The vendor deposits are gone from the wedding account. Jenna, 10:02 a.m. What wedding account? Dad, 10:03 a.m. The one she had access to. In Vegas, a breeze lifted the edge of my dress. A street performer started strumming a guitar, and a small crowd formed. He sang an old love song in a cracked voice that made strangers sway. I watched their faces, open, unguarded, and I wondered if trust has a sound. Alex, 10:08 a.m. I can't breathe. Jenna, 10:08 a.m. We're with you. Sit down, sip water. Mom, 10:09 a.m. Alex, honey, where are you? Dad, 10:10 a.m. I'm calling 911. Later, when I listened to the voicemails, I heard it. The panic cracking through Dad's voice, the hysteria floating just under Mom's. Someone saying paper bag in slow breaths and look at me. A final cluster of messages marks the moment the fantasy ended. Jenna, 10:19 a.m. Paramedics arrived. Mom, 10:20 a.m. We're canceling. Dad, 10:22 a.m. I'll make the announcement. Please don't let guests crowd Alex. Across the country, a bell on a door jingled as I stepped into a diner with red vinyl booths and a chalkboard menu. The air smelled like syrup and bacon, the kind of breakfast that makes you forget there's anything complicated in the world. A server called me Han and poured coffee like it was mercy. I ordered pancakes because I wanted sweetness, and I didn't apologize for it. While I cut into the stack, back in Chicago, a sign was printed and taped to a hotel ballroom door. Event canceled. People gathered, confused and murmuring. Someone recorded a short video and sent it to the family thread. I would eventually watch strangers' faces tilt from surprise to sympathy as the camera turned down the hallway. And then came the messages I didn't know I'd been bracing for my whole life. Jenna, 10:41 a.m. Where's Sophia? Does she know? Mom, 10:42 a.m. She's not answering. Ty, 10:42 a.m. She turned her phone off. Mom, 10:43 a.m. We need her. Need. That word landed differently. Not because I wanted to be the hero again, but because for once it wasn't expected, it was admitted. I finished my pancakes slowly, set my fork down, and watched the steam curl up from my coffee. I thought of nothing and everything. I didn't know about the canceled vows or the paramedics, or the way Dad's voice shook making the announcement. I didn't know about the whispers that followed, the sympathy that curdled into gossip, the way some people asked where I was as if I had abandoned them. I only knew the quiet rise and fall of my breath and the way sunlight hit the spoon on the table, turning it into a small, silver flare. Here's the truth about Fallout. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't pause to see if you're ready. It happens. And then, if you're lucky, you find out in pieces. Later, when I would scroll back through the chat, it would read like a countdown: wonder, worry, realization, collapse. And threaded through it all, a chorus I could hear even without sound. Where is Sophia? I paid my bill, smiled at the server, and stepped back into the heat. It felt different now, like the city was holding its breath with me. I walked without a plan, past fountains and facades, past lines of people and empty chairs. I passed a storefront mirror and caught my reflection. Older than I felt yesterday, clearer than I looked last week. If you've ever sensed a storm gathering just beyond the horizon, felt the air change, tasted the metal in your mouth before the thunder, you know what I felt then? A shift, a hum, the tiniest tug in my chest that said, something is happening. I didn't reach for my phone. Not yet, not then. Tell me, have you ever walked unknowingly through the middle of a disaster, calm because you didn't have the facts yet? What did those last quiet minutes feel like before your world tilted? Share it below. Someone else might be living there before right now. I didn't plan the moment I turned my phone back on. It just happened. Late afternoon in Vegas, gold light pooling on the hotel carpet like warm honey, and me standing by the window, holding that black rectangle like it could bite. I'd kept it on airplane mode for a day and a half. 48 hours of silence. 48 hours of not being the family fixer, not being the flashlight in every crisis. My thumb hovered, pressed. The screen bloomed awake. First came the numbers. 37 missed calls, 52 unread texts, 6 voicemails. The little red badges marching across the screen like sirens. My stomach dipped. But the room stayed quiet, like the world was holding its breath with me. I opened the texts. The thread was chaos, words stacked like falling bricks. Where are you? Call us. It's an emergency, Sophia, please. There were photos I didn't understand at first. Table settings half laid, a ballroom door with a printed sign, a bouquet lying sideways as if it had tried to escape. Then the sentences sharpened. She's gone. The account is empty. We're canceling. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped, the way soft things do when you finally let your weight hit them. I scrolled. Dad's messages were clipped, almost military. Mom's bubbled with panic, words running into each other. Alex had sent 3 at 9:30 a.m., and then nothing for hours. That gap opened inside me like an elevator shaft. I tapped the voicemails. Dad first. Sophia, call me. It's urgent. Ari, Mom second, voice breaking on my name. Please, honey, we need you. A bridesmaid I barely knew left a message that started with, "You don't know me," and ended with, "I think Alex is having a panic attack." There was a voicemail from Alex, too, 13 seconds. Breathing then, "I think I messed up." Static, click. My breath went thin, like paper. I pressed my palm against my chest to remind my body it was allowed to expand. On the nightstand sat the little blue notebook I'd bought that morning. I flipped it open with my free hand. On page 1, "I don't have to be who I've been." I read the line twice, letting it settle like a stone in a river. The messages kept coming as I sat there, as if time had finally caught me and decided to sprint. Cousins asking if the ceremony was postponed. A vendor chasing payment. A photo of the bridal suite. The closet gaping like a missing tooth. Then, Mom again. "We shouldn't have doubted you." I read that one 3 times. Not because I needed the apology to be perfect, because I needed to feel the shape of those words in my mouth. "We shouldn't have doubted you." Something warm and sharp surged through me. Vindication has its own temperature. It isn't gentle. It burns a path through disbelief and sits in the space where denial used to live. I had said something was wrong. I had said it out loud. I had paid for that honesty with exile, and now the truth was landing without me in the room to catch it. I stood up and paced. The hotel carpet was soft, patterned with looping vines, like a garden you could get lost in if you stared too long. Outside, the sky was slipping toward evening, that hour when neon wakes up and pretends to be starlight. I knew the script everyone expected me to follow: call back, book a flight, rush to the wreckage, be the reliable one, be the glue, be the stretcher carrying the patient. I picked up the phone to call Mom. I put it down. I picked it up again. My thumb found her name like a reflex trained by years of emergencies. Then I heard my own voice, steady, close. "You can care without sacrificing yourself." I texted instead. "I see your messages. I'm safe. I'll reach out soon." I pressed send and felt both guilty and clean. The sensation was strange, like rinsing a wound and discovering it stings because it's healing. I scrolled up, back to the beginning of the avalanche. There it was. the moment the first crack appeared. "Has anyone seen Megan?" And then the fault line widened until the whole plan fell through it. My chest tightened, but not just with fear. For Alex, yes, but also with a complicated relief. The room had told the truth that I had already heard. Here's the part that might sound ugly, but I promised myself I would be honest with you. I felt a pulse of victory, not because a wedding collapsed, because my reality was finally visible, because I wasn't crazy, because the gaslight had been switched off and daylight had snapped on and no one could pretend not to see the furniture. And right on the heels of that victory came doubt. Not about what happened, about me, about who I would be next. Would I fold and run home? Or would I stand inside this new boundary I'd drawn and see if it held? If it were you, would you have gone back immediately or stayed? That question hung between me and the window like a spotlight. I walked closer and touched the glass. My fingerprint fogged for a second and faded, like proof that even evidence disappears if you breathe on it. Below, buses crawled, billboards turned, strangers crossed streets without colliding, the city conducting itself without my help. I thought about every time I'd rushed in to fix things. The night Alex called from a parking lot with a flat tire, and I drove 40 minutes in a thunderstorm. The semester he fell behind, and I spent evenings editing his papers while my own laundry piled up. The Christmas I worked a double so he could fly home and surprise our parents. None of it felt wasted. Love never is. But I could see the pattern. Me as first responder, me as cushion, me as apology they didn't have to make. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Dad. "Don't worry about money. We'll sort the vendors. Just tell us where you are. Not angry, not blaming, just searching." I typed, "I'm in Vegas for a few days. I needed some space. Delete." Typed again, "I'm safe, taking time. I'll call tomorrow. Send." I didn't owe explanations that tore me open just to prove I was bleeding. I owed clarity, mostly to myself. So I made a deal with me, 24 hours. I would sleep, eat, walk, breathe, and not make a hero move. I would not jump into a fire just because I heard sirens. If the house was still burning tomorrow, I'd decide who I wanted to be when I walked toward it. I put the phone on silent and slipped it into the drawer. The room changed temperature when I did. Not literally, still cool, still quiet, but emotionally, like I'd closed a window on a storm and the rattling stopped. I breathed and heard it. In, out, mine. I changed into sneakers and went downstairs, not to run from anything, but to move on purpose. The casino hum wrapped around me, chips clicking, voices rising, a saxophone improvising out of nowhere. I didn't touch a slot machine. I just walked. Past tables where strangers held their breath as cards turned. Past a couple arguing in whispers. Past a bride laughing too loudly, her veil pinned slightly crooked. The kind of imperfection that endears rather than offends. It hit me then. Not all weddings end in vanishing acts. Some people choose each other and keep choosing. I could hold that truth without erasing mine. Two things can be real at once. Back in the elevator, a man reached to press a button and asked, "Rough day?" Funny how grief recognizes grief in a stranger's face. "Something like that," I said, and we both smiled like we'd let each other off a hook. In my room, I opened the blue notebook again. New page, new sentence. Being right isn't the same as being responsible for everyone else's consequences. I underlined it twice. I poured water from the little bottle by the lamp and sat on the floor with my back against the bed. The carpet smelled faintly like citrus cleaner and something sweeter I couldn't name. I thought about Alex's 13 seconds. I think I messed up. I pictured him sitting on a bench somewhere, elbows on knees, that familiar tilt of his head when the weight gets too heavy. My throat tightened. I whispered, like a prayer and a boundary at once, "I love you." "I'm not your ambulance." It sounded harsh, and it also sounded true. I let the truth stand there, in the middle of the room, until it felt less like a threat and more like a structure, like a beam you could build a house on. The sky outside went purple, then electric. Vegas does that. Skips Twilight and switches straight to theater. I ordered dinner I actually wanted and ate it slowly, not scrolling, not bargaining with myself. When the phone buzzed again, I let it. If the world needed me urgently, it could need me for one more hour without my answer. Before bed, I sent one last text. To Alex. I see your message. I'm here. I'll call you tomorrow morning. No lecture. No I told you so. No list of questions he would read as accusations. Just a rope tossed across a gap, held at my end with both hands. I turned off the lights. Darkness pooled, soft and complete. In that darkness, embarrassment tried to creep in. About the small, fierce joy I'd felt when truth finally aligned with what I'd warned. I let myself feel it and let it pass. You're allowed to be relieved when you are no longer treated like the problem for naming a problem. You're allowed to be right and still be kind. Sleep came like a tide coming back to shore after years of low tide. I didn't dream, or if I did, the dreams weren't loud enough to wake me. When morning arrived, it did not bring dread with it, it brought light. Plain, ordinary light. Here's what I learned that night. Sometimes the bravest kindness is postponing the rescue. Giving the disaster a chance to show you its true shape, so you don't run in blind and let it swallow you. Waiting isn't abandonment when waiting is how you keep from drowning with the person you love. I was right. But being right didn't need to be a weapon. It could be a compass. And for the first time in a long time, I decided to follow it. If you've ever stood at that crossroad, between rushing back to fix everything and staying put to protect your sanity, what did you choose? Tell me below. Your answer might give someone else permission to breathe tonight. Air felt different the moment I stepped off the plane in Dallas, heavier, familiar in a way that made my shoulders brace without asking permission. The terminal buzzed with rolling suitcases and hello goodbyes, and tucked between those sounds was the old rhythm I knew too well. Fix this, fix that, fix us. This time, I didn't speed up to match it. I walked at my own pace, suitcase clicking like a metronome I finally owned. In the parking lot, heat rose off the concrete in wavering sheets. My rideshare driver asked how my trip had been. I said, restful, and felt the truth of it sit steady in my mouth. The city slid by. Strip malls, church marquees, familiar intersections that could have navigated themselves. My phone vibrated with 2 new messages from Dad. Text when you land, come straight home. Not a demand, not exactly, but the old choreography tried to cue me anyway. I texted back, on my way, let's talk calmly. A tiny sentence with a spine. Their front door creaked the same as it had since high school. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and laundry sheets. Photos lined the wall. Alex in a cap and gown, me with a birthday cake, Mom and Dad on some long-ago beach. The house hummed with the leftover noise of a party that never happened. Ribbons on a side table, a sealed box of votive candles. A single place card that read groom's mother leaning against a vase like it was tired, too. Mom met me in the doorway to the living room. Her eyes were swollen, her mouth brave in the way mouths get when they're holding back a flood. She reached for me but paused. Permission, for once. Sophia. My name came out like a plea and a relief. I'm here, I said, and let her hug me. We stood in that soft, damp quiet while the air conditioner rattled. Dad cleared his throat from the sofa. Kiddo, he said, standing halfway like he wasn't sure if this was formal or casual. Alex sat in Dad's armchair, elbows on his knees, staring at his clasped hands. He looked smaller than he is. 13 seconds of voicemail had already told me enough, but the sight of him filled in what voice could not. He didn't look at me. Not yet. I set my suitcase by the stairs, sat at the edge of the coffee table like I used to before report cards and big confessions. I breathed. Counted 4 in, 6 out. We're going to talk, I said, my voice steady. But we're going to do it differently. Mom blinked. Differently? No yelling, I said. No guilt. No making one person the ambulance for everyone else. I glanced at Alex. His mouth twitched at that word, ambulance. Maybe he'd heard it in the space between my texts. Maybe he'd always known. Dad sank back onto the sofa, palms on his thighs. All right, he said. Say what you need to say. I looked at Alex. Not around him, not over him. I'm sorry for your pain, I said. I'm not sorry for my boundary. His head lifted like a slow hinge. His eyes were red-ringed, defensive and grateful at once. You were right, he said, and the words were the least and the most he'd spoken to me in months. I didn't need to be right, I replied. I needed to be heard. Silence pressed the room flat for a beat. I could feel our family's old reflex reach for the wheel, explain, justify, bargain. I didn't let it. Here's what I'm willing to do, I said, hands open on my knees. I will listen. I will help you think. I will not rescue. I will not pay vendors. I will not call 20 people to soften your consequences. I will not be the buffer you hide behind. Mom flinched at consequences. Dad nodded once, slow. Alex rubbed his jaw like the word had texture. Vendors are calling, he said, voice gravel thin. Dad handled most of it. I couldn't. Dad lifted a hand. We covered deposits. We'll dispute what we can. We don't need... He stopped, exhaled. We don't expect you to do that. The correction landed like a small miracle. I appreciate that, I said, because I won't. Mom folded into the edge of the couch cushion and gripped a tissue like it was the only thing keeping her from floating away. I just want us to be a family, she whispered. We are, I said. Being a family doesn't mean choosing the person who fixes everything. It means telling the truth about what each of us can carry. Alex swallowed hard. He stared at his hands again, then at me. I shut you out, he said. I chose her. He winced, as if the sentence cut. I didn't want to hear anything that didn't match what I wanted, I said. Love can be loud enough to drown good advice. I looked at him, not as a prosecutor, not as a savior. I'm not here to say, I told you so. I'm here to say, I won't abandon you, and I won't abandon myself for you. His eyes glossed. He nodded. My chest eased an inch. Mom leaned forward. But what do we do? She asked. With the aftermath? The word broke in the middle. After math. The counting of what remained? We decide what belongs to who, I said. Dad, you're already handling the vendors good. Alex, you call the bank, freeze accounts, get statements, make a list of every charge you can't identify. I'll help you organize the information, not fix it, not make calls for you, with you. He nodded again. This time it looked like relief. Okay. I want to add something, I said, hearing my heartbeat in my ears. No more secrets that involve my time or my money without my consent. No more conversations about me unless I'm in the room. If I'm not invited, my name doesn't get used as a scapegoat. That includes texts. That includes group chats. Mom's gaze dropped. Dad studied the rug. Alex opened his mouth, then closed it, then tried again. That's fair, he said. I used you as shorthand for it'll be fine. He grimaced. Because you always made it fine. I'm done making it fine, I said softly. I'm ready to make it honest. The air shifted, like the house exhaled. For a long minute, none of us spoke. The grandfather clock clicked from the dining room, measuring the space between old rules and new ones. Dad broke the silence. Your mother and we should apologize. Mom's hand found his. We were so focused on getting through the day that we forgot to ask what it was costing you, she said, turning to me. And then when you tried to warn us, we made you the problem. I'm glad you can say that, I said, and meant it. An apology doesn't erase what happened, but it builds something to stand on. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Habit said answer now. I let it ring. It stopped. The room didn't collapse. That felt like progress. Alex leaned back. A small motion, but it changed his shape. "I'm going to therapy," he said suddenly, like he'd just surprised himself. "I booked an intake this morning. I can't keep choosing the easiest story." His voice cracked on easiest. A part of me wanted to cheer. Another part, the older sister part, wanted to take the laptop and research cognitive behavioral worksheets and send him 5 links in a podcast. I did none of that. "I'm proud of you," I said. "That's your work. I'll listen if you want to share. I won't check your homework." He laughed through his nose, watery. "Deal." We talked logistics for a while, not frantic, not fueled by panic, just calendars and phone calls and what-ifs, boundaries but also bridges. When the conversation started to fray, I stood. "I'm going to my place," I said. "I need sleep. Tomorrow afternoon I can stop by. We can sort documents. 2 hours, time boxed." I looked at Mom. "After that, I'm off duty." "Off duty," she repeated, the phrase unfamiliar and right. "Okay." At the door, Alex spoke my name like he was testing how it felt to be gentle with it. "Sophia." I turned. He stood, hesitated, then stepped in and hugged me. Not the clinging hug of a drowning person, a steady one. "Thank you," he said into my shoulder. "Not for fixing, for not fixing." "You're welcome," I said, and felt something unclench in both of us. Outside, dusk leaned in. Cicadas started their electric choir. I sat in my car and rested my forehead on the steering wheel for a breath that felt like a new page. The neighborhood smelled like cut grass and grill smoke, and the kind of normal that used to make me feel trapped. Tonight, it felt like a place I could leave and return to on my own terms. On the drive home, I passed the park where Alex learned to ride a bike. I saw him wobbling, 8 years old, me running with a hand on the seat yelling, "I've got you, I've got you," before letting go. He didn't know right away that my hand was gone. He pedaled, then looked back, startled, then forward again. He didn't fall. Memory flickered and settled. Maybe this is that moment too, me letting go, him staying up. I pulled into my complex and sat in the quiet car while the engine ticked itself cooler. I wanted to text the family a dozen instructions. Instead, I sent one message. "Home? 2 hours tomorrow. Sleep tonight?" Dad heart reacted. Alex typed a bubble, then stopped. Then typed again. "Thank you. I love you." I locked the phone and let the dark screen be dark. In my apartment, the air was cooler than their living room. My blue notebook waited on the table where I'd left it. I wrote, "I'm not the family's emergency exit. I'm a person." Underlined it. Drew a box around it. Then, music drop. A thought landed with the weight of a key in a lock. But I didn't realize the darkest secret was right at home. I didn't chase it. I didn't unspool it. I let the line sit like a storm cloud on the edge of the horizon, a shape I could name but not yet explain. Tomorrow would bring weather. Tonight, I chose a quiet forecast. If you've ever drawn a line and felt both shaky and strong, tell me how you did it. What words did you use? Who surprised you by respecting it, and who didn't? Your story might help someone practice their first no. The next morning should have been simple. Coffee, a shower, 2 hours at my parents' place to sort bank statements with Alex. That was the plan I'd set out loud so I wouldn't slide back into the oldest version of myself. Plans sound firm until you open a door and feel a room change you. Mom was already up when I arrived. She was at the sink, rinsing a mug that didn't need rinsing. Eyes fixed on the window like the backyard had answers. Steam rose from the dishwasher when she cracked it open. The lemon scent felt too clean for the day we were about to have. "Hi," she said, not turning. The word floated like a leaf that couldn't decide where to land. "Morning." I put my keys in the bowl by the door. The clink sounded loud enough to be an accusation. She wiped her hands on a dish towel that had "Bless this mess" stitched in light blue thread. It made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. "You want coffee?" she asked. But her voice had a thinness to it, as if the offer were a script she remembered but didn't believe. I made one on the way. I held up the paper cup, then set it down because my hand had started to shake. We stood in that small, crowded quiet where two people both know a question lives, but neither wants to give it a name. Then the hallway clock corrected the silence with a single tick, and we moved. Dad appeared with a stack of envelopes, statements, receipts, letters from vendors that had the weight of bad weather. Alex followed, hair damp, eyes clear in the pale way eyes are after a storm. We sat at the dining table. The oak felt colder than I remembered. Dad spread the papers like a map. "We'll do this in order," he said. "No blame, just facts." I nodded, agreed. Mom didn't sit. She smoothed a wrinkle in the tablecloth that wasn't there. "Do we have to do this now?" she asked, not snippy, not pleading, just thinner. "Sooner is calmer," I said. "It's easier to handle numbers before they turn into monsters." Alex tried to smile at that, failed. "Let's start." He was the one who pulled the first statement from the stack. He was the one who read the balance. He was the one who winced. That mattered to me, the way he owned the page instead of pushing it toward me like a problem set. We went line by line, withdrawals at dawn, purchases in places none of us recognized. A florist charge that made Mom cover her mouth because she'd picked that florist exactly for their romance package. Alex wrote amounts on a yellow pad. Dad wrote dates. I wrote vendors. We didn't talk about feelings. We let ink hold what our throats couldn't. But under the quiet, something else was loud. The way Mom kept hovering near the doorway. The way her eyes flicked to the hall when no one was talking, as if a ghost were late to join us. "Mom?" I said softly. "Sit with us." She flinched. "I'm fine standing." "Sit," Dad said, kind but firm. He pulled a chair out. She stood behind it as if it were a podium, didn't sit. That's when the small hair on my arms lifted. You know that sense? When the room's temperature is one thing and your body reads another. When your gut taps your shoulder and whispers, "Pay attention here." "All right," Dad said, clearing his throat. "Next statement." Before Alex could flip the page, I put my hand on it. "Hold on." I looked at Mom. "Are you okay?" She was still gripping the chair back. Her knuckles whitened slowly, like clouds drifting across a pale sun. "I'm fine," she said again, and the word fine snapped like brittle candy. I kept my voice low. "Something's wrong." Dad's jaw worked. Alex looked from me to her, eyes narrowing, but not in accusation. More like focus, the way you look at a puzzle and finally see the edge pieces. Mom's eyes glistened. She blinked them clear. "You don't understand," she said, and her voice did the thing where it hits gravel on the way out. I just... Her throat closed. She tried again, the sentence climbing over itself, urgent and quiet. "You don't understand. I just wanted peace in the family." The words hung there like a chandelier no one remembered installing. We all looked up at them at the same time. "What does that mean?" Alex asked. He wasn't angry yet. He was a boy who had been told there was a secret door in his house and wanted to know where it led. Mom finally sat. Her body folded like a paper map. You can't crease along the right lines anymore. She held the dish towel in both hands and twisted it once, then stopped, as if she had just remembered it could tear. "I thought if I kept things quiet, we could get through the day," she whispered. "I thought she'd calm down." "I thought..." Her voice fell into silence, then climbed out again. "I thought telling you would make it worse." "Telling us what?" I asked. I kept my tone steady. Not because I wasn't hurt, because I wanted the truth more than I wanted the performance of outrage. Mom stared at the table, at a tiny scratch shaped like a comma. "Marcus called me last week," she said. He said there were rumors." My stomach tightened. The room did that weird ripple thing where one sound becomes three. "Rumors about what?" "About money," she said. "About business. That people were saying things that weren't kind." He sounded so embarrassed. He asked me not to tell anyone. Said if everyone stayed calm, they could fix it after the wedding. He said he didn't want to worry Alex. Alex inhaled sharply like he'd been dunked in cold water. "He called you?" She nodded. "Twice." Her mouth trembled around the number. "Maybe 3 times. He sounded young, like he needed a mother." A bitter laugh tried to jump out of me, and I bit it back. I didn't want cruelty to be the shape of my boundary. "Mom," I said carefully, "you told me last month to be kind. You told me not to stir things up. Did he tell you to tell me that?" She didn't answer. "Answer enough." Dad leaned back, exhaled through his nose. His disappointment didn't boom. It settled like dust on everything. "Mary." "I know," she whispered. "I know." Her fingers pressed the towel flat as if smoothing could erase. I thought if I could just get us to the day, we could pause the worry. For one day, I just wanted peace. "Peace isn't the same as quiet," I said. "Quiet can be a muzzle." She winced at that, but she nodded. I didn't want to lose him, though." She looked at Alex like he might vanish if she blinked. "He was so happy. I thought honesty might break something I couldn't fix." My chest stung, because I knew that logic in my bones. Haven't you done that? Haven't you kept a thing unsaid because you were afraid a truth would be the match? And what happens? The house burns anyway. Alex ran a hand over his face. "So when Sophia warned me," he said softly, "you already knew he'd called." Mom closed her eyes. A tear found the edge and fell. "I asked her to be kind," she said. "I made her the problem because it was easier than looking at this." She gestured at the spread of envelopes, at the empty space where a wedding should have been. No one moved for a long minute. The refrigerator hummed. A bird hit the window glass and flew away, leaving nothing but the thud. Dad broke it. If Marcus reached out, did he ask for anything else? His voice was level in that dangerous way men's voices get when they are standing on a cliff and pretending it is a sidewalk. Mom hesitated. Not the startled kind, the choosing kind. She picked her next words up like glass and set them down gently. "He asked if we could help if there was a shortfall," she said. "Just until after the event. He said he would make it right." "How?" I asked, and the word didn't rise. It sank. How would he make it right? She shook her head. "He didn't say." Alex put both hands flat on the table. "Why didn't you tell me?" It wasn't a shout. It was the ache coming into form. "Because," she said, and then stopped because the next part was the hardest. "Because I was afraid you'd call it off." And I thought, if we could just get to the vows, it would be real enough to hold. Silence again. This kind comes with gravity. I looked at my brother. "I'm sorry," I said. 2 words big enough to hold more than my own part. "You didn't deserve a ceremony built on secrets," he swallowed. "Neither did you." Mom reached toward him and pulled her hand back before it landed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was wrong." She looked at me. "I made you the villain because you were easier to fight than a future I couldn't control." The apology didn't fix me. It did something else. It cracked a window. Air moved. "Thank you for saying it," I said. "Let's keep saying true things." I flipped my notebook open to the page I'd written last night. Being right isn't the same as being responsible for everyone else's consequences. I didn't read it out loud. I let it steady my spine. Dad tapped the envelopes. "Facts, then. We'll keep collecting them." He looked at Mom. And we won't keep secrets. Not because we want conflict, but because reality is the only ground that holds. Mom nodded, tears sliding without drama. No more secrets, she said. The sentence sounded like it had been waiting for years. We returned to the numbers, but the room had shifted. Less like a courtroom, more like a triage tent. We weren't pretending nothing bad had happened. We were deciding not to make it worse by lying to each other. Alex read another line. Here's a transfer at 5:42 a.m. He circled it. He didn't look at me to fix it. He looked at the bank's phone number and wrote it down. That difference glowed like a small lamp. As we worked, Mom spoke in slow drips. A vague message here, a red flag there. She wasn't offering excuses anymore. She was setting down the pieces she had kept in her pockets. At one point she said, almost to herself, "Peace at any price isn't peace, it's just delay." When we stopped for water, I stood by the sink beside her. The windows showed the same backyard I'd grown up in. Faded swing set, patch of grass that never quite grew right. You could have told me, I said, not as a wound, but as a road we might take next time. I didn't want to lose my son, she said. Then softer, I didn't want to lose my daughter either. You almost lost both, I said. The sentence didn't hiss. It landed and sat. She nodded. We both watched a squirrel pivot on the fence like it couldn't make a decision and then bolt anyway. When I left that afternoon, it wasn't triumphant, it wasn't tragic, it was honest. And you know what? Honest can feel like betrayal when the habit is silence. But honest is also a door. You can step through and find each other on the other side. Or you can choose to stay in the quiet room and keep thirsting. If you've ever tried to keep peace and ended up keeping secrets, I want to hear how you found your way back. What truth did you finally say that let the air move again? Drop it below. Someone's mom, someone's sister, someone's you might need the words. I didn't go looking for proof. Proof came and sat down in front of me like it had paid for a ticket. It started with a simple errand. Mom asked if I could pull up the vendor confirmation she'd forwarded months ago. Check my email, she said, already halfway to the laundry room with a basket against her hip. It's in the wedding folder, I hesitated. Boundaries, right? But this wasn't snooping. This was a receipt hunt. A boring, adult task to keep us out of the emotional ditch. I took her laptop from the dining hutch and opened it. The hinge made a tired sound, like even it was done with secrets. Her inbox bloomed into rows of subject lines. ADS, recipes, church notices. Then a tidy folder tree on the left. Home, travel, taxes, wedding. I clicked, wedding. The screen filled with vendor names, confirmations, threads full of exclamation points, and pastel attachments. I scrolled, eyes half fogged from numbers, and then I saw a name that didn't belong there. Not alongside florists and DJs, not under wedding Marcus. My finger froze on the trackpad. I blinked, once, twice. Maybe it was a receipt for a tuxedo? A question about groomsmen? I clicked. The thread opened. At the top, a sentence. Subject. We'll keep this between us. My pulse picked up like it had found a hill. I scrolled to the first message, 4 days before the wedding. Marcus, to my mother. Mary, I hate to bother you. This is embarrassing. There are rumors and some short-term cash issues. Please don't tell Alex. He's under enough pressure. If there's any way to bridge a gap just until after the ceremony, I'll make you whole immediately. Make you whole. The phrase looked shiny and harmless, like a ring in a display case, but under the lights it was tin. My throat went dry. I kept reading. Mom's reply was right below it. Marcus, I understand. We want things to go smoothly. Let's not upset anyone right now. How much are we talking about? I pressed my lips together so I wouldn't say the word that arrived in my mouth. I scrolled. Marcus again. Nothing huge. 5 to 10,000 would stabilize things. We can repay Tuesday once deposits clear. Discretion is everything, discretion. That word isn't a band-aid. It's a blindfold. There were 3 dots, Mom typing, and then her answer. Let me see what we can do. My heart did a quiet, mean lurch. Not a surprise lurch. The confirmation kind. The kind that says, you weren't crazy. You were early. I heard footsteps in the hall. I snapped the laptop a little closer to me without thinking, then forced my hands to relax. I wasn't stealing. I was reading the frontal lobe of the problem. More messages. 2 days before the wedding, Marcus. Mary, we won't forget this. You're saving the day. Mom, this is a loan. After the wedding, we'll talk. Marcus, of course, Tuesday latest. And then the transfer confirmation. A PDF attachment with a bank logo, my mother's name in the sender field. A subject line that made me nauseous with how normal it sounded. Wire sent. I clicked the attachment. It opened to numbers dressed as gentlemen, $10,000, 00, routing details, transaction ID. Notes. Short-term support. My chest flared hot, not jealous anger, not sibling rivalry. The clean, surgical anger of a boundary violated without even being considered. Anger mixed with shock into something electric. Find it? Dad asked from the doorway, casual. I found something, I said. My voice came out level, which surprised me. Can you come here? He came. He read. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds, which is how you know a man has been shoved off his map. His thumb dragged down the trackpad slowly, as if gentle scrolling could change the meaning. Mary, he called, not loud, not soft. Sophia found a thread. She came back with the towel now folded instead of twisted. When she saw the subject line, the color left her face in a quiet rush. No theatrics, just absence. You kept this in wedding? I said, to no one and to everyone. I didn't. Mom started, then stopped because the sentence she wanted to use would turn into smoke in her hands. I wanted it where I could watch it. You don't watch a secret, you cultivate it. Alex hovered behind us. He read over Dad's shoulder. When the numbers registered, he made a sound I'd never heard from him before. Half exhale, half sob. He pressed his fist to his mouth like he had to physically hold the noise in. Highlight it, Dad said softly to me to move the moment forward. I highlighted with my voice because there wasn't a marker strong enough. We'll keep this between us, I read. 5 to 10,000 would stabilize things. Discretion is everything. Wire sent $10,000. Each line landed on the table like a card in a game none of us had wanted to play. I scrolled again, heart punching the inside of my ribs with each swipe. There were more. The day before the wedding, Marcus, you've given me peace of mind. After vows, we'll fix everything. Mom, please make sure there are no more surprises. Marcus, absolutely. Thank you for believing in me. Believing. The way a cliff believes in gravity, I looked up. When were you going to tell us? I wasn't, Mom said. Her honesty saved me from spending energy unmasking it. I was going to carry it. Just until it was safe. How did it look from in there? I asked, tapping the screen. From inside secrecy. Did I look like the problem? Or did the quiet feel so clean you forgot what it was hiding? She closed her eyes. Both, she whispered. I wanted your brother to have a day without fear. I told myself I was brave. Brave without truth isn't brave, I said. It's theater. Alex sank into a chair like the air had thickened. You gave him $10,000? He said it would be a bridge, Mom said. He said Tuesday. He said a lot of things, Dad murmured, staring at the transfer receipt like it might confess. I turned the laptop toward Alex. Look at the timestamps. He did. He traced the dates with his finger. So, while I was asking the vendor for a discounted package, Marcus was asking Mom for cash. And while I was getting disinvited for stirring things up, Marcus was... I didn't finish the sentence. It finished itself inside everyone's head. The anger rose again, clean and bright. Not the kind you throw, the kind you build with. This is why I warned you, I said to Alex, to all of us, not to ruin your day. To keep you from funding your own humiliation, he nodded. He didn't say sorry, not yet. But his face softened around the eyes in a way that said he'd stopped fighting the shape of the truth. Mom gripped the back of a chair. "I'll pay it back," she said, wildness in the promise. "We'll sell something I can—" I held up a hand. "Stop making this about penance," I said. "Make it about pattern?" She blinked. "Pattern? This email isn't random. It's a map of how we all operate when we're afraid. Marcus asks for secrecy, and we oblige because peace feels holy. Alex ignores red flags because hope is a drug with a wedding dress on. I get cast as the villain because I talk out loud. Dad assumes it can be fixed with work and checks, and you—" I paused. "You pay for a lie and call it love." She put a hand to her mouth. Tears came without theater, just gravity. "I did," she said. "I did." Dad sank into the chair next to Alex. He nodded slowly, as if blessing the truth as it came. "So we stop that." "Starting now," I said. "No more private deals. If anyone asks for money, it's a family conversation. If fear shows up, it doesn't get to drive." Alex wiped his face with the heel of his hand. "What do we do about the 10,000? "Document it," I said. "File a police report if the bank advises it. Consult a lawyer if we need to. We don't chase him with rage. We build a paper trail with spine." Dad's mouth tilted. The faintest smile that wasn't joy so much as agreement. "Paper trail with spine," he repeated, as if trying on the phrase. "I can live with that." I returned to the inbox, scrolled up. Another subject line caught my eye. Silent support. The day before the transfer, Marcus. "I've always admired your family. You've raised a great man. I won't forget this kindness." That sentence tried to dress manipulation as gratitude and got caught at the door. I highlighted it with my voice, too. Flattery, pressure, promise. Classic triangle, I said, more to myself than to them. Mom nodded, tiny, like she recognized the shape at last. "He made me feel necessary," she said, "and scared and noble." "Scammers always hand you a costume first," I said gently. "You either put it on or you put it down." She looked like she wanted forgiveness right then, not the grand kind. The ordinary kind that lets a person keep standing. I didn't hand it over like a lollipop. I placed something else on the table. Clarity. "I'm angry," I said. "I don't hate you. Both are true." We kept reading. We printed the thread, we stapled it. We wrote dates at the top of pages in blue ink, then in black, so the day would live in more than one color. We added it to a growing stack that no longer looked like chaos. It looked like a file. At one point, Alex reached across the table and touched the edge of the transfer receipt like it was the photograph of a stranger who looked like someone he used to love. 10,000, he whispered. "It's not the number, it's the... believing." I met his eyes. "Believing isn't the problem," I said. "It's believing without verification and calling that loyalty." He nodded hard, like a thought finally clicked. "No more blind loyalty," he said. "Not to anyone. Not even to the version of me that wanted the wedding more than I wanted the truth." We paused then, all of us. The room didn't feel like a courtroom, not anymore. It felt like a workshop. Tools on the table, plans half drawn. The smell of sawdust you get when you cut away what doesn't belong, and still the shock. It sat in my stomach like cold metal. The way betrayal makes a home where warmth used to live. Anger kept it from freezing solid. Purpose kept it from burning me up. I slid the laptop back and looked at Mom. "No more emails like this," I said. "Not with me out of the loop. Not with Alex out of the loop. If someone needs help, they ask for help in daylight." She nodded again. "Daylight," she said, as if tasting the word for the first time. When I left the table to refill my water, my hands trembled. I gripped the glass tighter. At the sink, I looked up and saw myself in the window. Older, yes, sharper too. The kind of sharp that cuts through rope, the kind that frees. Back at the table, I placed the printed thread in the center like a small flag planted in new ground. This is the moment we stop being the kind of family that hides fractures with fresh paint, I said. We're going to reinforce the beams. Alex exhaled a sound that might have been a laugh in another life. Construction metaphors, he said. We really are starting over. Not over, I said. Forward. If you've ever opened a message and felt your stomach drop because the truth you suspected finally had ink on it, how did you handle it? Did you explode or did you build? Tell me below. Your story might be the flashlight someone needs when their own email lights up with, "We'll keep this between us." We didn't plan a confrontation. Confrontations plan themselves when truth stacks up and the table starts to bow. Late afternoon light cut the dining room into gold and shadow. The stack of printed emails sat in the center like a square, quiet bomb. No one touched it. No one had to. It touched us. Dad set out 4 glasses of water as if hydration could keep the room from catching fire. Alex paced a thin path between the hutch and the doorway, hands on his hips, then in his hair, then folded like he was bracing for a wave. Mom stood with her back to the window, which made her a silhouette. Familiar shape, unreadable face. I took the chair closest to the papers and rested my palms on either side of them. Not ownership, presence. No one spoke. The refrigerator hummed. A lawnmower droned a few houses away. Somewhere on the block, a dog barked like it had opinions about the weather. Inside, the clock clicked each second into the air and let it fall. "Mary," Dad said finally, voice level. "Sit." She didn't move at first. Then she folded down into the chair like her bones had been replaced with wind. The chair made a small sound. It wasn't a creak, it was a sigh. Alex stopped pacing and sat across from her. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, the way men do when they're trying to hold themselves together with posture. I slid the top page toward the center. The wire transfer. $10,000 looking smug in black ink. "We all saw it," I said quietly. "We all read it." Mom's fingers tightened around the dish towel she'd been carrying like a talisman. She nodded once. That was it. Just once. Like admitting gravity, Alex tried first. He always tries first when he's scared. It makes him feel like he's steering. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out raw with, the edges still jagged from the cut. Her eyes lifted to him, glossy and ancient. "Because I thought it would break you," she said. "And I wanted you to have one day." One day with no cracks, he swallowed. It looked like it hurt. It broke me anyway. That landed. You could feel it land. It changed the angle of the light somehow, or maybe just the way our faces held it. I pushed the next page forward. "We'll keep this between us." The words sat there like a dare. This wasn't about a day, I said. Not a scold. A map. This was about our pattern. Secrets to protect someone. Silence to keep rooms calm. Money to buy time we don't actually have. Mom's mouth trembled. I thought I was helping. Helping who? I asked. She flinched. The towel twisted. Everyone, not me, Alex said. He didn't raise his voice. He made it smaller, sharper. You gave him money? You gave me ignorance. You gave Sophia blame. Silence again. Long enough for the dog outside to bark twice more and for the lawnmower to move down the street. Dad slid into the seat beside Mom. He didn't touch her. He placed his forearms on the table like rails. We can say we're sorry all afternoon, he said. And it would be true, and it wouldn't be enough. He turned to her. Tell us everything. Everything. The word opened a hatch. For a second, I feared the flood. Then Mom did something I didn't expect. She respected the word. She didn't rush. She didn't explain. She told. He called, she said. Marcus, first to my cell. Then to the house phone. Said there were rumors he couldn't control. Said people were talking to clients. He sounded frayed, like a rope with too many knots. He said if we could help, even a little, it would get him to Tuesday. He called me Mom. She shut her eyes, one tear escaping with embarrassing grace. No one has called me Mom in a long time, unless they needed something I could actually give. I heard it. The ache under the rationale. The way identity can be bribed. You don't need money for that. You just need the right word. Did you ask for documentation? I said. A balance sheet? A plan? Anything besides a promise? She shook her head. I asked for Tuesday. I asked for the idea of Tuesday. Alex's face collapsed and reassembled. Did you believe he would pay you back? I believed I wanted to believe, she said. And believing felt easier than telling you the truth and watching your face do what it's doing now. The room went quiet in the thick way, like right before a summer storm when the air tastes metallic. I could feel my own anger move through me, not as heat this time, but as weight. A backpack I could put down or keep wearing, I breathed, set it by my chair. Mom, I said softly, look at me. She did. Her eyes looked like a story that had lost its ending. You asked me to be kind to Megan when I brought up concerns. You told me not to stir. Did Marcus ask you to say that? She inhaled like the question hurt and nodded, one small nod. I let that truth sit on the table with the papers. We didn't have room for outrage and clarity at the same time. Clarity gets first chair. Dad rubbed his jaw the way he does when he's searching a map for a road that isn't drawn. This isn't just a mistake, he said finally. It's a system, and we built it. He looked at me. Sophia, you say the thing no one wants to hear. Alex, you hope so hard you can't hear her. Your mother tries to turn down the volume on reality. I write checks and call that leadership. He shook his head once. It wasn't disgust. It was recognition. No more. Alex nodded, then startled at his own agreement like he'd needed Dad's line to step onto. No more, he echoed. Pause, long, no soundtrack. Just breath and the faint wheeze of the air vent. Then Mom's composure unhooked itself like a clasp. Her shoulders jumped once, and the tears came, quiet and relentless. No theatrics. Just salt and water, and the sound I've known since childhood. The one that means the inside finally refused to carry one more inch without spilling. She pressed the towel to her mouth and cried into it, not to muffle herself, but to stay on the planet. The room didn't rush to fill the sound, old us would have. Old us would have swarmed with napkins and platitudes, and someone would have made tea, and someone would have said something bright and brittle, and we would have moved on like moving forward is the same as healing. We didn't do that. We let the moment hold. We let it stretch. We let it ache. The clock ticked, and the light shifted, and the house learned a new rule. Quiet isn't cover. Quiet is space. When she could speak, Mom lowered the towel. I'm sorry, she said to Alex, then to me, then to Dad, like the word had to be fitted to each face separately. I am so sorry. I believe you, I said. And I still need change, she nodded. I want that too. Then here's my line, I said, and the air sharpened, ready. No more secrecy for the sake of peace. Money leaves this house only with agreement. If someone asks for help, we say the request out loud in this room. I tapped the folder, and when any of us feels the urge to manage appearances, we ask, what's the price of that appearance? If the answer is someone else's sanity, we don't pay. Dad exhaled like I'd pulled a splinter from the afternoon, seconded. Alex sat back, but his hands were still on the table, open, empty, ready. I'll call the bank again, he said, voice steadier. Freeze everything left, then the police report, then a lawyer consult. Not because I want drama, because I want documentation. Paper trail with spine, I reminded. He half smiled. It looked real. It looked new. Mom wiped her eyes. What do you need from me? Truth when it hurts, I said. And a pause button when you want to rescue. I can try, she whispered. You can practice, I said. Try is for guesses. Practice is for growth, she nodded, breathing over the word like it might float away if she didn't weigh it with air. We got up from the table and moved like different people wearing our same clothes. Dad pulled the printer from the hutch. The ancient machine whirred awake like a dog getting off an old cushion. We printed statements, we stapled, we labeled. Alex called the bank and read reference numbers in a low, careful voice that didn't apologize for existing. I typed a timeline in notes. Calls, emails, withdrawals. Mom handed me dates without rounding them to spare our feelings. Every small act felt like a plank added to a bridge. And then the house threw us a test. Mom's phone lit up. The screen glowed with Marcus's name. The room froze. The air pulled tight as a drum. Old reflex. Answer. Soothe. Promise. New muscle. Pause. We all looked at her. Not to decide for her. To witness her choosing. Her thumb hovered. She didn't pick up. The call stopped. The screen went black. She set the phone face down and exhaled like a corset had finally been unlaced. That, she said, still shaking, felt like walking past a cliff and not jumping. Felt like staying alive, I said. We settled back into work. The light outside tilted toward evening, that soft hour that forgives a little. No one said it, but we knew. This was our midpoint burn. The moment when the old scaffolding falls and you decide whether to stand in the dust or build something that actually holds weight. Alex ended his call and looked at us, not for permission, just to connect. Account frozen, he said. They flagged the withdrawals. I filed a fraud claim. Next step is a statement at the precinct. Dad nodded, proud without swagger. I'll drive, he said. Mom put both hands flat on the table like the wood might answer a prayer. I'll come. I need to say the words out loud to someone who writes them down. Quote. We gathered the folder. I tucked the email printouts inside, the wire transfer page on top like a heading. My fingers brushed the paper, and something in me clicked into place. The part that used to think my job was to cushion, now understanding my job is to clarify. Before we left, I asked Mom to look at me again. You and I said, are going to have a separate conversation later about why keeping peace makes you powerful and makes me dangerous. Not today, but soon. She didn't flinch. I'll be there, she said. With all the words I didn't use, we stepped into the hallway together. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and printer ink and a little like relief. At the door, Alex touched my wrist, a quick, grateful tap. Thank you, he said, for not letting me use your strength to skip my work. You're doing it, I said. That's the point. Outside, evening air held the day's heat like a warm bowl. The sky leaned toward pink. I locked the front door behind us and caught our reflections in the glass. 4 people with the same last name, carrying a folder instead of denial. It didn't look heroic. It looked human. It looked like we might actually make it. If you've ever sat at a table where the truth made the loudest noise in the room, how did you keep steady? Did you rush to patch, or did you let the silence do a little surgery first? Share the moment that changed your family's rules. Someone here is waiting for language to try. The precinct smelled like old coffee and copy paper. That clean, bureaucratic smell that says, we turn chaos into forms here. We sat on plastic chairs that pretended to be comfortable. A fluorescent light hummed overhead like a nervous thought. Dad held the folder in his lap. Alex drummed 2 fingers on his knee, then stopped, then started again. Mom kept her hands folded as if she were praying to the god of second chances. I watched the door to the intake room. Every few minutes, it opened and let a story out. Neighbors arguing over a fence line, a wallet gone missing, a man who just needed someone official to say what happened to him mattered. When they called our name, we stood like a 4-part chord. The officer behind the desk had kind eyes that didn't try to be gentle, they just were. "Tell me what happened," she said. "No fluff. A safe place for a story to be heavy. We told it in pieces." Alex went first this time. He didn't apologize for the wrong details he'd believed. He didn't dramatize. He read from the timeline like it was a script the truth had written for him, dates, withdrawals. The exact time Megan's phone stopped sharing her location. He kept his voice calm. Maybe to keep the shame from running the show, Dad followed with the paper trail. "Here are the statements. Here are the suspicious charges. Here is the transfer from my wife to Marcus." Each page made a soft sound against the desk. "Facts don't need to shout." Mom cleared her throat. She held the wire receipt and the email printouts as if they could burn. "I sent the money," she said. "He asked for discretion. I thought I was protecting my son. I was protecting a lie." Her voice did not wobble. Tears waited politely in her eyes and did not fall. "I want to report it. I want the record to be real." The officer nodded like she'd been waiting to hear someone say exactly that. "We'll document everything," she said. "If this connects to other reports, it helps us move faster." She took the folder, scanned, highlighted, stapled. She asked the right small questions, addresses, phone numbers. Whether any of us had been threatened, we hadn't. We'd been persuaded, which is a neighbor of threat that wears good cologne. On the way out, the hallway mirror caught us, 4 faces that looked like we'd been in a storm and stepped back into sun. Not neat, not clean, but clearer. It's strange how telling the truth to a stranger with a badge can make a family sound more like a family than we have in years. Back at my parents' house, the air felt different. Lighter, the way a room does after someone opens a window on a day they should have days ago. We placed the stamped incident number on the table like a tiny anchor. Dad made tea, not to comfort, but to mark a transition. Alex sat with his shoulders not quite so close to his ears. Mom took the seat across from me and didn't reach for a towel. Her hands were empty. That felt important. "This doesn't fix the money," she said almost to herself. "But it fixes something else. Integrity," I said. "It fixes the part of us that knows and says at the same time." She looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen since childhood, when I brought her the truth about small things, broken bracelet, forged signature, the C+ on a quiz, and she chose connection over performance. "I miss that version of me," she said. "You're allowed to be her again," I said. "There isn't a statute of limitations on courage." We still had consequences to catalog, calls to make, vendors to face. But the mood had shifted from panic to stewardship. We weren't cleaning up someone else's mess to keep appearances. We were owning our part and then handing back what wasn't ours to carry. In the late afternoon, Dad opened a spreadsheet. He is at his calmest when cells line up and columns accept his authority. "Assets," he said, and the word didn't flex. It sat, simple. "We have the rental on Maple. We have the small lot by the creek." His eyes flicked to Mom. "We can sell one." Mom didn't flinch. "The rental," she said. "It's appreciated enough. We can cover the 10 plus what the vendors can't recover. We can fund the lawyer and not be scared of the invoice." My heart did a surprised, grateful twist. This is the power of daylight. It doesn't just show what's broken, it lets you pick up the tools. "Are you sure?" Dad asked. Not because he disagreed, because he wanted her to hear her own certainty. "I'm sure," she said. "We bought that place for later. Later is now." Alex blew out a breath he'd been holding for a week. "I'll meet with the agent," he said. "I'll be there for the signatures. I want to watch the cost come out of the places it should come from, not from my sister's sanity." He glanced at me. It wasn't an apology dressed as heroics. It was respect, sturdy as a chair. We set appointments. The next days blurred into a procession of practicalities. A bank manager who spoke like a doctor you actually trust. A lawyer who didn't promise victory, just process. A meeting with the florist where Mom's voice didn't shake when she said, "We can't pay in full. We can pay this. We're pursuing recovery on the rest." The florist surprised us. She'd seen worse. She nodded, made a note, wished Alex well. Kindness didn't erase debt. It made the room feel less like a cage. At night, I slept. Not perfectly. Dreams still tugged at me with their weird logic, but I didn't wake to a shove in my chest. I woke to my alarm, and my alarm sounded like mine. The turning point came 3 days after the report, when we sat with the real estate agent in the rental's empty living room. The place still smelled like someone else's dinners and a faint lemon from our quick clean. Sun pooled on the hardwood like it had been poured. The agent ran comps, talked timelines, wrote numbers that felt like grown-up answers. Mom signed the listing agreement with a hand that didn't tremble. After, we lingered in the echo. "We had birthday parties here," Dad said, smiling at a corner where no one stood. "Remember the piñata?" "I missed that one," I said, out loud, without venom. I had been at a conference, if memory served. I had sent a cake and apologized on FaceTime while washing hotel shampoo from my hair. The house held the memory without punishing me for it. Alex ran his hand along the windowsill. "Sometimes a house is just wood and decisions," he said. "Today, this feels like the right one." On the drive back, the road felt straight. No hidden dips, no surprise curves. At a stoplight, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We can make this right if you don't blow it up Tuesday." The audacity was almost elegant. Marcus had found my number. Old rules begged me to answer. New rules didn't bother to explain themselves. I blocked the number and put the phone face down. At dinner, we ate in the kitchen instead of the dining room. The table was too heavy with paperwork to host spaghetti. Dad poured sauce, Alex grated cheese. Mom set forks and plates without needing approval. We ate quietly. Not the scared quiet, the kind that lets gratitude breathe. Halfway through, Mom spoke. "I've been thinking about my apology," she said, "and how apologies can be sugar dressed up as remorse. I don't want that. I want to repair." She looked at me. "I told the ladies at church the truth. That I asked you to be quiet when I should have asked myself to be brave. I told them I was wrong." I paused with my fork in the air. "How did that feel?" "Embarrassing," she said, "and clean." I smiled into my napkin. "Clean is underrated. We cleared plates, we made tea. We didn't pretend we were done. We acknowledged we'd started." Later, the 4 of us sat in the living room with the folder open. I took out the email thread again. I read lines aloud. Not to wound, but to vaccinate. To build antibodies against our old disease. "We'll keep this between us," I said, and then I let the sentence hit the floor and break. "Discretion is everything." Another shatter. Then the line that had been living in my teeth all week, waiting for the room that could hold it. Silence turned out more dangerous than a lie. The sentence hung in the air like a warning label and a benediction. We didn't debate it. We accepted its jurisdiction. Mom's eyes shone. "I want that on the fridge," she said. "Big letters." "Tomorrow," Dad said. "I'll print it." We turned to the practical finish. Next calls, next steps, the boring heroics of adult life. Then we did something we hadn't done in months. We laughed. Not at anyone. At ourselves, at the absurdity of thinking peace could be purchased with a wire transfer and a prayer. The laughter made room for the ache to be bearable. Alex looked at me after the laughter faded. "I don't know how to say thank you without making it sound like I'm giving you a job again," he said. "Say it like this," I replied. "Thank you for telling the truth when it would have been easier to hide." "Thank you for not asking me to be your cover," he nodded. "Thank you," he said. For that, we closed the folder. The house exhaled. I wrote the incident number on the spine with a marker, block letters, legible from across the room. We put it on the bookshelf next to the cookbooks and the photo albums, not to forget, to remember, to say, this belongs to our history now, not our present. Before I left that night, I stood in the doorway with Mom. She touched my forearm. "You didn't abandon us," she said. "You anchored us." I confused those two things. "I used to confuse them too," I said. "I thought love meant carrying. Now I think it means seeing and saying." She squeezed my arm. "Seeing and saying," she repeated, like a pact. Outside, the Texas evening was soft. The cicadas sang the same song they always sing, the one that sounds like electricity in the trees. I sat in my car and didn't rush to turn the key. I let the quiet cover me in a way that didn't hide anything. If you've ever chosen truth over quiet and watched your life get harder and cleaner at the same time, I'd love to hear how you did it. What sentence did you say that finally changed the air in the room? Drop it below. Your line might be the next person's ladder out. There's a kind of quiet that isn't hiding anything. It's the quiet after thunder, when the air smells rinsed and the edges of everything feel honest. That's what the house sounded like the morning after we put the folder on the shelf and stopped pretending silence could carry us. I made coffee. Dad jogged around the block like he was learning how to move in a body that had set something down. Alex sat at the table and paid 2 bills with a kind of calm that would have looked boring to you last month. To me, it looked like a miracle. Mom watered the plants without whispering to them like they were a secret audience. I opened my journal, no big goals page, no manifesto, just a date and a sentence I wanted to live by in small rooms with familiar faces. I can love you and still tell the truth out loud. I read it once, twice. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like a steady hand on the back as you step off a curb you weren't watching, don't get me wrong. Boundaries aren't fireworks. They're more like traffic lights. They are boring on purpose so you can get where you're going without bleeding. I used to think I needed people to understand me to treat me well. Now I want something humbler and stronger. I want the rules clear enough that love doesn't have to do acrobatics to survive. I sent one group text to the 3 people whose last names match mine. Family update at 6, not a tribunal, a tune-up. Alex reacted with a thumbs up. Dad sent thumbs up. Mom wrote, "I'll be there," with listening ears. The fact that she had to say it told you we were still learning. The fact that I believed her told you we were learning fast. At 6, we sat in the living room. No papers this time, no piles, just 4 people and an open window and a slice of sky trying its best to be purple. I went first because I'm the one who usually speaks when it's inconvenient, and I wanted to prove to myself I could speak when it's safe too. "I'm not the police," I said. "I'm your daughter. I'm your sister." Sometimes I'm going to be loud. When I am, I want you to hear me as a siren, not a spotlight. A siren means danger near. A spotlight means look at me. I want to be a siren. Dad smiled like he'd found the right wrench. "Noted," he said. "And for my part, I won't try to solve feelings with forms. I'll keep doing the paperwork because that's useful, but I won't use it to outrun pain." Alex leaned in. "I won't punish information for arriving early," he said. "Those are your words, Soph. I'm borrowing them." If someone I love brings me a red flag, I'm going to put my hope in the truth, not in the outcome I want. Mom folded her hands, then deliberately unfolded them. Open palms. "I won't confuse quiet with kindness," she said. "If peace requires me to shrink or someone else to go blind, it is not peace. It is staging." I'm too old to be a stagehand for a lie. We laughed. Not because her line was a joke, because it was accurate in a way that lightened the room. Then we did something new. We wrote it down. "House rules." I titled the page, in letters big enough to see from across the room. We listed 5. Money moves in daylight. No one is punished for bringing a concern. Kindness without clarity is not kindness here. If fear shows up, it gets a name before it gets a vote. Apologies are down payments. Repair is the plan. We taped the list to the side of the bookshelf, next to the folder, like a spine for our spine. Every time I walked past it that week, I didn't feel controlled. I felt held. Rules aren't cages when you write them yourself. They're guardrails on a bridge you're proud to cross. And because life isn't an essay, because it loves to pop quizzes, we got our test 3 days later. Megan called Alex, not to repent, to explain. You know that tone, airy, evasive, equal parts I'm a victim and I'm a genius. She said the word misunderstanding like it had 4 syllables and a parachute. Old Alex would have made a nest for that word and laid his head in it. New Alex asked for documents, dates, a meeting at the bank with a notary. He didn't shout, he didn't bargain. He treated reality like the only adult in the room. She hung up halfway through his sentence. He looked at me after. Did I do that right? You didn't perform, I said. You practiced? He smiled at the difference. It fit him better than I expected. You kept asking me in the comments, what does closure look like in real life? Does it feel like revenge? Does it feel like fireworks? Sometimes, sure. But most days, closure looks like dependable things. It looks like receipts that match the story. It looks like a lock clicking. It looks like eating dinner without swallowing a lie whole. It looks like forgiving someone and then not offering them your wallet. It also looks like telling the truth about your own part without hating the person who played it. I used to think I had to pick, be compassionate or be clear. Turns out the grown-up choice is both in one sentence. Like this: I love you, and I won't carry the cost of your secret. Like this: I see your shame, and I'm still going to call the bank. Maybe the most surprising part? How much energy I got back. Keeping a lid on a pot takes both hands all day. Taking the lid off, letting the boil be seen, means you can cook on purpose or you can turn off the burner. Either way, you're not hovering in a kitchen you hate pretending you enjoy the steam. Mom and I took a walk the evening the house rules felt like they'd settled into the walls. The sky did that Texas thing where it goes from gold to watermelon to a blue so deep you want to sit in it. We passed kids on scooters and a woman pushing a stroller and a neighbor watering his lawn like it was a beloved pet. Mom took my arm the way she used to in crowded parking lots when I was little, and she pretended she needed me to guide her so I wouldn't feel guided. I thought I had to be the cushion, she said, all my life. The person between pain and the people I love, I know, I said, but cushions get sat on. She laughed, quick and unpracticed. I want to be a chair, she said. Something people can sit with, not on. That's a great chair, I said. Sturdy, honest. Maybe a little loud when you slide it back from the table. Like its maker, she said, and we both laughed again, the good kind, the kind that doesn't apologize for joy. Later that week, the real estate offer came in. It wasn't a fairy tale number, it was fair. We accepted, Mom and Dad signed. The closing date went on the calendar in black ink that didn't flinch. The money won't erase the harm. Repairs seldom do. It will fund the vendors who got burned. It will reimburse the wire. It will pay for the lawyer who wrote emails and sentences that ended with periods instead of question marks. More than that, it will remind us we can choose the cost that heals over the cost that hides. Here's the part I won't glamorize. Some relationships didn't survive our new rules. When you stop being a stage, some actors leave. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. You don't have to hate them to stop handing them your microphone. You don't have to burn the theater down to decide you prefer daylight. What survived grew. My brother learned that love is more than the best interpretation of a bad pattern. My father learned that protection isn't always payment. My mother learned that peace without truth is just noise-canceling headphones over a fire alarm. I learned that boundaries don't exile you from your own family. They let you stay without lying. So this is my final word, and it's not a door slam. It's a welcome mat with conditions. To the people I love, I will show up. I will listen. I will forgive faster than I forget, because forgetting is dangerous, and forgiveness is alive. I will ask for receipts, not because I'm suspicious by nature, but because trust deserves structure. I will say the hard sentence in plain English and then make dinner. I will not fund a secret. I will not pretend to be okay so you can keep your story tidy. I will not call fear faith. I will not call silence support. And to the version of me that kept asking for permission to be right, you don't need permission, you need presence. You have it. Keep telling the truth out loud. Keep choosing daylight. Keep your voice low and your facts high. Use I more than you when it heals. Use no when it saves lives. Pick love that can breathe under the weight of honesty. If I could hand you one sentence to tape to your fridge, it would be the one that changed the air in our house. Silence turned out more dangerous than a lie. Read it on ordinary mornings, read it on holidays, read it when your phone lights up with a name that used to feel like home and now feels like a test. Let it steady you. Let it be the small, brave thing that keeps you from selling your piece to buy someone else a performance. You asked me what to do when you're cut out by your own people. Here's my practical list, the kind my dad would approve. Name what happened in plain words. Put every promise on paper. Move money in daylight. Make rules you can tape to a wall. Stay kind, stay clear, stay. We didn't become a perfect family. We became an honest one. And honest families can heal. The slow way, the sturdy way, the way that lets you sit at the table and know nothing sharp is hiding under the napkins. If you've walked a path like ours, if you've chosen a boundary and watched the room rearrange itself, I'm listening. What rules saved you? What sentence became your lighthouse? Drop it in the comments. Your words might be the bridge someone else uses to walk out of a quiet that's been costing them too much. And if you're still in the storm, if today is one of those days when you're staring at a message that asks for secrecy and calls it love, this is me, a stranger on the internet who has been there saying gently, you're not wrong for hearing the alarm. You're not cruel for choosing daylight. You're not alone.